June 13, 2025. A sleepless night in the city of Dimona, Israel. The Iron Dome air defense systems operated at full capacity, intercepting waves of long-range Sejal-3 missiles launched from Iranian territory, targeting nuclear facilities and critical military bases. But one missile got through. It struck a residential area near Soroka Hospital, leaving at least 27 casualties, including 9 children. Just 72 hours later, on June 16, Iranian media accused Israel of launching a stealth UAV strike, originating from a hidden neighboring country, against the Fordow nuclear facility in Qom. The tension escalated by the day. On June 24, Israel officially launched a counteroffensive operation named the Sword of Thunder, targeting Iranian military and air defense outposts along the western border. Simultaneously, Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthis in Yemen declared their entry into the conflict, firing missiles into northern Israeli cities. The entire Middle East trembled. The war map glowed red like burning embers. And then, as if a whisper echoed from the past, a chapter in the Bible suddenly felt more alive than ever before. Gog, of the land of Magog, will bring a mighty army from the north, to attack my people Israel, living securely in their promised land. The prophecy of Ezekiel 38, once forgotten, has now been reopened by millions of believers around the world. They are not asking, how long will the war last? They are asking, could it be that the word of God is being fulfilled before our very eyes? And if so, then today's war between Israel and Iran is not just another political conflict. It could be a pivotal link in a far greater design, an ancient prophecy, slowly unfolding. In the ancient scroll known as Ezekiel, written more than 2,500 years ago, a strange prophecy was recorded, not in poetic, elegant language, but through fierce imagery, metaphors, and veiled warnings. There are no gentle prayers or familiar religious phrases, only fire, sword, armies, and foreign lands in motion. The author was Ezekiel, a priest taken into exile in Babylon after the fall of Jerusalem in 597 BC. It was a time when many Jews believed God had turned his face away from them. Yet, in the midst of that exile, Ezekiel didn't just lament the ruins of his city. He began to receive visions, not only of his people's fate, but of events to unfold in the latter days. Chapter 38 is one of those visions. And it begins with a direct command from the Lord himself. Son of man, set your face against Gog, of the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. Prophesy against him. At once, the prophecy unveils a startling scenario. An enemy never before seen in Israel's history, rising from the distant north, leading a vast alliance to invade my people Israel. But who is Gog? What land is Magog? And why is this name mentioned in such a dire prophetic chapter? Let's decode. Gog, in Jewish tradition, this name points to a mysterious leader, not a nation, but a person, or possibly a symbol of hostile power opposing God's people. Unlike known kings in scripture like Nebuchadnezzar or Pharaoh, Gog isn't tied to a specific dynasty. He feels more like a metaphysical darkness, carrying the intent of a final war. Many scholars suggest Gog represents not one individual, but a dark coalition, formed to rise against Israel in the end times. Magog, first mentioned in Genesis 10, Magog is listed as one of the sons of Japheth, ancestor of the northern tribes beyond Israel. In post-biblical traditions, Magog was associated with barbaric nations to the north, known for waging war. According to ancient maps and early 1st century writings, the land of Magog likely covered areas of Central and Western Asia, possibly including modern-day Iran, Turkey, Azerbaijan, and the Caucasus region. Meshech and Tubal, these names appear multiple times in the Old Testament, often tied to warlike tribes and weapons traders from the Anatolian highlands, modern-day Turkey. However, some theological interpretations, especially from conservative evangelical streams, draw connections between Meshech and Moscow, and Tubal and Tobolsk in Russia, based on phonetic similarities in Hebrew. This interpretation paints a more ominous picture. That Gog could be the leader of a multinational military alliance, stretching from Iran through Turkey and possibly even into modern Russia. Taken together, Chapter 38 is not a random warning. It reads like a strategic blueprint, describing a powerful alliance from the north and east, led by a mysterious figure named Gog, rising to attack a peacefully resettled Israel. What's remarkable is this. For over 1,900 years, Israel did not exist as a nation. And yet, in 1948, it was miraculously reborn, almost as if unlocking the first necessary condition for this prophecy to come true. And now, as Ezekiel's descriptions begin to appear in real life, military coalitions, advanced weapons, aerial strikes from the north, and a solitary Israel at the eye of a global storm, the question begins to emerge, clear and haunting. Could the rest of the prophecy be exactly what we are witnessing today? In less than 2 weeks, the Middle East has turned into a blazing furnace. But this is no ordinary fire. It's not just a sudden clash that ends with negotiations. This is the fire of a destined war, a confrontation that many believe was foretold long ago in an ancient scroll, once forgotten. June 13, 2025. A peaceful night in the city of Beer Sheva suddenly turned into a living hell. Sirens pierced the darkness. Soroka Hospital, home to hundreds of newborns in intensive care, was struck by a Sejal 3 missile launched from Iran. The explosion claimed 27 lives. Images of a severely burned infant, eyes wide open in panic, spread across social media worldwide. The global public was shaken. But Iran refused to take responsibility. They called it a defensive response. June 16. The night skies over Iran were no longer quiet. A stealth drone pierced the country's air defenses, and detonated deep within the Fordow nuclear facility in Qom province. This site is among Iran's most fortified, buried deep underground, surrounded by layers of concrete and a 4-tier radar shield. No nation stepped forward to claim the attack. But recovered flight data pointed to Mossad. And according to military analysts, the likely launch point was Azerbaijan, right along Iran's northwestern border. A secret war had begun, and neither side showed signs of backing down. June 18 to 20th. Tension spread like fire igniting a powder keg. From southern Lebanon, Hezbollah militants launched volleys of rockets into Haifa and Israel's northern towns. To the southwest, Houthi rebels in Yemen declared solidarity with the people of Palestine and Iran, then used suicide drones to strike the port of Eilat, Israel's key gateway to the Red Sea. Simultaneously, Shiite militias in Iraq announced their readiness to move into Syria to support Iran's defense. Regional media circulated footage of thousands of troops mobilizing along the Syria-Iraq border, armed with Iranian-supplied weapons. June 24. Israel's patience ran out. An emergency cabinet meeting was held. The Prime Minister declared a full-scale military operation, Sword of Thunder. Air Force, naval units, and cyber warfare divisions were deployed simultaneously in Syria, Iraq, and flashpoints near the Golan Heights. Explosions rocked the region over the next 72 hours. Journalists called it Israel's most rapid retaliation since 1973. In the skies, missiles streaked by like falling stars. On the ground, the sound of sirens and distant booms became the new daily rhythm for Israeli civilians. And if you look at the map of the Middle East right now, you'll see blood spreading in concentric circles, as if an invisible hand is drawing the lines of war from the north. Fire spreads from Iran to Iraq, arcs west into Syria, and crashes into Lebanon. Then pours down into Gaza. And finally, ripples into the Red Sea with strikes from Yemen. Israel stands like a lone island in a sea of flames. And in this exact moment, one verse from the book of Ezekiel echoes with chilling relevance. You will come up against my people Israel, like a cloud covering the land. A cloud, not of rain, but of war. No one mentions Gog on the evening news. No one says Magog at diplomatic summits. But what's happening bears an eerie resemblance to what Ezekiel once described. And in such a scene, one question begins to emerge. Are the nations attacking Israel today, Iran, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, the same coalition foretold in the prophecy of Magog? Is this merely political conflict and military retaliation? Or are we witnessing the first movements of a prophecy, written in a time when Israel was still a nation in exile? Is prophecy being fulfilled? In the ancient scroll known as Ezekiel 38, a vision of the final war emerges, not like a modern military report, but like an apocalyptic painting, mysterious, surreal, yet filled with chilling detail. A coalition of nations, led by Gog, will come to attack Israel. Not for material gain. Not to seize land. But driven by something deeper, envy toward a people called the people of the Lord. In the latter days, you will devise an evil scheme, and say, I will invade a land of unwalled villages, I will attack a peaceful and unsuspecting people, all of them living without walls and without gates or bars. Ezekiel 38. Detail 1. The Jewish people gathered back to the Promised Land. For nearly 2,000 years, this nation was scattered across the world. But then, the unimaginable happened. In 1948, Israel was officially re-established. Jews returned, from Europe, from America, from Russia, from ancient Persia, even from Ethiopian tribes, as if an invisible hand was guiding them home. They settled in open lands and flourished, just as the Bible described. Without walls or bars, because modern Israel relies on advanced defense systems, not ancient fortresses. The first detail has already come true. Detail 2, a coalition from the north and the east. The ancient names fall like puzzle pieces onto a modern map. Persia equals Iran. Kush and Put equals Sudan, Libya, North African nations influenced by radical Islamist factions. Gomer and Togarmah equals Turkey and the Caucasus. Meshech and Tubal equals believed by some to symbolize Russia. When pieced together, what do we see? A multipolar military alliance stretching from Iran, through Syria, to Russia, possibly including irregular forces like Hezbollah, the Houthis, and Shiite militias. They don't share a nationality, but they share a common enemy, Israel. And this structure was described more than 2,500 years ago in Ezekiel. Detail 3, I will rain down hailstones and fire and burning sulfur from heaven. In ancient terms, this was how Ezekiel described divine destruction, through supernatural fire from the skies. But today, we have thermobaric bombs, cruise missiles, kamikaze drones, bunker-buster warheads. And where do they come from? From the sky. And when they rain down on Haifa, Tel Aviv, or Qom, you don't need to imagine it. You just need to watch the news. The fire from heaven is no longer metaphor. It is consuming the land of prophecy, in real time. Detail 4, you will come like a storm, like a cloud covering the land. In modern warfare, attacks don't only come from land, they strike from air, sea, and cyberspace. And the alliance against Israel today does not strike in isolated raids. They come like a storm, with UAVs, missile barrages, heavy artillery, and psychological warfare. Hezbollah from Lebanon. Hamas from Gaza. The Houthis from Yemen. Shiite militias from Iraq. An Iranian military satellite stationed in Syria. They strike in unison, flooding the skies and battlegrounds. Exactly as described. Like a cloud covering the land. So then, all of this, from the rebirth of Israel, to the Northern Alliance, to fire from heaven, technology, to the storm-like siege. Is it just coincidence? Or has it been written, in an ancient scroll, line by line, now slowly unfolding? Ezekiel, a priest in exile, wrote things no one could understand in his time. But today, every image he saw is being captured live, by satellite and television. And so, the question is no longer, is the prophecy true? But rather, what comes on the next page? By now, you might be asking yourself, Are all these events merely the result of geopolitical conflicts, battles for resources, influence, and power? Or, is there an ancient script, written thousands of years ago, slowly unfolding before our very eyes? Is Iran actually Persia in the Bible? The answer, according to nearly all classical and modern biblical scholars, is yes. In the original Hebrew text, the word Paras appears directly in Ezekiel 38 verse 5, unambiguous, not symbolic, but explicitly named. Persia, Cush, and Put will be with them, all with shields and helmets. Persia is the ancient name of modern-day Iran. Before 1935, not only Westerners, but also Arabs and Asians referred to this land as Persia. And if Persia is mentioned in Ezekiel as part of a coming war alliance, then today, Iran is far from alone. It has deep cooperation with Syria. It trains and arms Hezbollah. It provides kamikaze drones to the Houthis in Yemen. And it is building strategic military ties with Russia, China, and even shadowy forces in Africa. What does this mean? It means, the map of the Magog alliance is starting to match reality, piece by piece, in the year 2025. Who is Gog? A warlord? A future king? Or something more symbolic, representing a system that rises against God? In the Bible, Gog is not the name of a nation. Not a historical king. Nor is he portrayed as a monstrous villain. Gog is the leader of Magog, Meshech, and Tubal, described as the one who initiates the Great War, leading armies from the north. Some conservative scholars believe Gog is a literal person, perhaps a president, a general, or a religious figure, who will rise during the end times. But others look deeper. They believe Gog is not one man, but a spirit of the age. A symbol of a new world order, one without God. An order run by anonymous forces, controlling media, finance, military power, and the minds of billions through algorithms and signals. Gog doesn't need to appear on TV. Gog doesn't need to rule a specific country. Gog could be embedded in tech corporations, global secret societies, or within military strategies we'll never know about. Are we living in the pre-apocalyptic era? This question is no longer something out of a Hollywood movie or science fiction novel. Because if you take Ezekiel 38 as a compass, three major signs are already coming true. 1. The rebirth of Israel, 1948. After nearly 2,000 years in exile, the first prophecy has come to pass. 2. The Jewish return from all corners of the earth. Every year, thousands of new immigrants arrive, from Russia, the US, France, Ethiopia, Argentina, returning to the land of their ancestors. Just as Scripture says, He will gather His people from the nations. 3. The formation of the Gog alliance. Each nation in that prophetic alliance, Persia, Iran, Cush, Sudan, Put, Libya, Gomer, Turkey, is now playing a military role in the region. And Meshech and Tubal, names many scholars associate with Russia, are now clearly involved in global tensions. Once that alliance is complete, the war described in Ezekiel 38-39 will no longer be a metaphor. It will be real. And the most terrifying part is, that chapter contains no warning for the world. No time to prepare. No peace talks. No period of escalation and retreat. Only a total siege. Followed by divine wrath, raining down as hailstones, fire, and brimstone. At that moment, every power on earth will fall. And God declares, I will magnify myself and sanctify myself, and I will be known in the eyes of many nations. Then they shall know that I am the Lord. Ezekiel 38. So, whether you believe in the Bible or not, whether you see today's wars as politics or prophecy, one truth remains. History doesn't repeat itself, but it echoes. And sometimes, that echo comes from an ancient scroll, covered in dust, but never proven wrong. We've just revisited a prophecy written more than 2,000 years ago. A prophecy from a time when the map of the world had yet to take its modern form. And yet, it names, precisely, the powers now moving in our time. Persia, Meshech, Tubal, Gog. Names once thought buried in the sands of ancient history. Now reappearing, not in dusty scrolls, but in today's breaking news. We've just examined every verse of Ezekiel 38. Against every real-world event unfolding hour by hour in the Middle East. And the result? The Jewish people have returned from the four corners of the earth. The nation of Israel has been re-established, after nearly 2,000 years of dispersion. Hostile alliances, from the north, the east, and even the south, are now taking shape. And the skies over the Middle East burn bright with missiles, UAVs, and ballistic strikes. The very things the prophet once described as fire and brimstone raining from the heavens. All of this leads us to one haunting question. Is this war merely a political coincidence? Or is it a link in a sacred design, etched into time since the foundation of the world? Are we living in the final days? The days when humanity arrogantly believes it has dominion over everything? Or have we only just begun to hear the trumpet blast? A warning from heaven itself? And if it is a warning, how many of us are truly awake enough to hear it? Ezekiel didn't write his prophecy to frighten. He wrote it to open the eyes of those who can still see, and awaken those sleepwalking through the age they were born into. We may never know the exact day or hour, but we can sense the signs. And when the signs grow clearer each day, the question is no longer, will it happen? But rather, when will it happen, and whose side will we be on? And now, it's your turn to reflect. Do you believe prophecy is unfolding in our lifetime? Do you believe Iran is the Persia of old? That Gog is a rising entity, soon to be revealed? And that this war is more than a human conflict, but a confrontation between the divine and the earthly? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Because who knows? Your voice may be the wake-up call someone else desperately needs. This is Veil of Mystery. We're not here to tell you what to believe. We're here to help you look back at what was written long ago, and ask why it matches the present, with eerie precision. If you found this worth thinking about, please like, subscribe, and share this video. We're only getting started. Many more forgotten prophecies await.